I would say that, and this has been particularly true with the generations we're coming through now, where they lost a couple of years or a year and a half
Mm-hmm.
of social interaction to COVID.
All right.
And I think that there's a lot of there's various different phrases for it. Helicopter parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to allow your children to go out and have some real world experience before they get
Mm-hmm.
to university. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big problem. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. If all of a sudden they're going off and they haven't had the opportunity to be more independent the way they're going to be when they're living away, they're not going to be as prepared. So it's great
yeah,
reminder for parents of 10 to 12-year-olds as well to start thinking it when you're especially when your children are turning into teenagers, 13, you need to give them a little more freedom every year so that they can be independent. Hello and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Show. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the Queen of Online Safety. Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today has spent his career on both sides of the safety line, the physical safety and the digital online safety. Ross Thorpe is a director of NGS Security, a UK firm that specializes in protecting one of the most valuable groups there is, university students living away from home for the first time. He and his business partner built that into a multi-million pound operation guarding campuses and student accommodation across Britain. But then he looked at what was really happening online to those same young adults with all the feeds flooding with AI generated content that nobody could reliably hold on a minute. Then he looked at what was happening online to those same young adults, the feeds flooding with AI generated content that nobody could reliably tell was fake, and he decided to do something about it. Ross built Rooverse, ROO Verse, and is the founder and CEO of this social platform that bans AI generated content entirely. And we're so glad that you're doing it and so glad you're with us on the show. Thank you, Ross, for joining us.
yeah. Thank you for having me.
Now, everyone has a personal experience and reason for getting into security and safety. What brought you into this field?
Good question, really. I think that everyone has every person walking this earth has a duty to try and leave the world a little bit better than how they woke up. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's about that ethos. It's about the idea that we can, if we keep everyone safe, everyone can contribute better, and everyone's better able to push the world forward. Um, Specifically, relating to Ruverse, we saw that during the pandemic with the lockdowns that the students we were taking care of were turning more and more to social media. Now, social media has been huge for decades,
Right.
but um, when the pandemic hit, we saw that they were using social media more and more and more. And very quickly after COVID lockdowns came AI and the flood of AI generated content. And we were concerned that there was an inability to have that human connection when most of what you're consuming online is AI generated content.
That's such an important point. And now for our listeners who were hearing me describe your bio, you run a company that puts security officers inside university halls of residence, and you built a social media platform that bans AI content. To some people, those might sound like two completely different jobs. Walk us through why they're the same job to you.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it's about ultimately what it comes down to is you want to create a safe environment for people to do peoply things,
I like that.
and you can't do peoply things if you're constantly looking over your shoulder. And there's a big one I'm a fan of, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
So for the people listening who aren't aware, that it's a triangle, and what you have to do what you do is you start with uh, safety, shelter, food, water. So in order to move up the hierarchy of this needs, everyone has needs.
Mhm.
You have to first establish the layer below you. So you can't, if you don't have shelter, food, water, you can't move up to the next level. which is security and things like that. And then you can move up to social connection, self-actualization, things like this. So
Hmm.
in order for people to move up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to first establish safe environment. And so
Hmm.
if you can't be existing inside a safe environment, you can never move forward to self-actualization, which is the peak of the pyramid, which is where you are the best version of yourself in all aspects.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I could not agree with you more because, when I lead workshops, like I was just at a women's conference and I was leading a workshop in online safety. And the reaction of the women who are very talented, they're entrepreneurs and small business owners, and they have these incredible dreams about the impact that they can have, but they're holding them, they're being held back and they're holding themselves back because they're not feeling safe getting out there. And so a big part of is so that hierarchy is a beautiful way to characterize it. And I'm familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I love that you brought it up because it's a great reminder. You got to lay the foundations. You can't if you don't feel safe, you're not going to be as interactive and because you've got a little threat response going on, which is taking you out of your best thinking brain and putting you into your fight or flight brain. And when we do that, we don't bring our best selves. So, it's a really profound thing that you have built your career on.
Yeah, and the issue with there is, and it's fight or flight, and like you said, once you activate that fight or flight and that sympathetic nervous system,
Hmm.
you really can't really can't do anything that's not the basic survival of that moment. And
Hmm.
there's a phrase I like, and I think it was, I might misquote the philosopher. It might have been Seneca, it might have been Zeno from Rome. That an angry man closes his ears and opens his mouth.
I love that. Yeah.
And so if you're and anger is fight, it
Mhm.
is the fight section of that flight, and the
Right.
same applies
You're
in the other way
defending
direction.
yourself mode when you're angry. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't you can't hear what's happening around you. You can't see. You get very tunnel visions, and there's
Right.
the nuance of the human existence gets shut down. I think when you
Yeah.
when you feel unsafe.
Well, and when we're talking about safety and fear and concerns, that's a great segue into, the core work that you started doing, which is around student accommodations. I mean, students leaving home for the first time and going to a new city or a new state, a new country, um, just a new location, new environment, new people around them, fellow students, faculty, custodians, every people who work at the university or college or whatever. And then the parents, the fear of, oh my gosh, my baby is going off to school. And it can be very scary for both sides, particularly also parents have a lot of concerns about the physical safety and the online safety of young women and men going off who don't yet have the life experience to be able to protect themselves. So when you think about, in student accommodations, a very particular kind of vulnerability, as well. But when you think of this population going off, what are the risks that you're seeing on the ground that a lot of parents may not be thinking about or don't think, or give them a way to think about it so that they can look at how to protect their young adults?
I would say that, and this has been particularly true with the generations we're coming through now, where they lost a couple of years or a year and a half of
Hmm.
social interaction to COVID.
All right.
And I think that there's various different phrases for it. Helicopter parenting.
Hmm.
You've got to allow your children to go out and have some real world experience before they get
Hmm.
to university. I
Hmm.
think that's a big problem. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. If all of a sudden they're going off and they haven't had the opportunity to be more independent the way they're going to be when they're living away, they're not going to be as prepared. So it's great
yeah,
reminder for parents of 10 to 12-year-olds as well to start thinking when you're especially when your children are turning into teenagers, 13, you need to give them a little more freedom every year so that they can be independent. Whether they're, and, even if they're just going out into the world and not going, to college or anything, just moving out, just leaving the house for the day and going out. They need to be able to have their wits about them and understand what they need to do in case they get into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, there's a silly little story, but this is a true story of someone I know. He had to go, and his daughter's going to university in September next year,
Hmm.
and so, but she was going on a work placement as part of her college, and she'd been dropped off to school, given a lift to college, all this kind of stuff. And despite the fact she's 17, she'd never gotten a train, and
Wow.
so she had to get the train back from this. Not never got on a train on her own. So on the first day of her work placement, he had to drive to the train station and show her, to make sure, because she was so nervous about getting on the train for herself for the first time,
Right. Right.
that she just wanted to make sure someone made sure she got on the right train. And while she's been on the train with her parents, she'd never gotten a train on her own at the age of 17.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very easy for parents to want to do lots for their children, driving them
Hmm.
around, taking them
Right.
places, checking in on them.
Right.
There is a careful line to be drawn where you don't want to leave them without real world skills, and then have all those real world skills have to be developed very quickly when they go away to university.
Right. No, that's a great point. And I think that's some great advice for everybody who has younger people and young adults anywhere in their life is just kind of, assessing what life skills do they have if they were suddenly on their own, do they know what to do? And that goes from how to do things around their own house to what they do out in the world and to how they stay safe. I have a question for you around safety. I actually was a victim of some of physical abuse attack when I was 18, and I was very I'd never told anybody about it for many years, and it was traumatizing. I didn't tell my parents. I had gone away to a new job, and I was excited. I was branching out. And then I got physically assaulted and it traumatized me. And I felt I must have done something wrong. I did all the things that you do when you're younger and your prefrontal cortex is not fully evolved and you don't know any better and you blame yourself. And I honestly think the reason we blame ourselves is because it gives us more of a sense of control. Like I thought, well, if I did something wrong, at least I still have control. If something bad happened to me, I feel more scared because I feel like I don't have agency. But I never talked to the police. I never talked to anybody about it until about 8 years later. You are dealing with university students, and your officers are the first people that a student in trouble will often speak to. So, what advice in how you train your officers could you give all of us at how to be better at helping observe, notice, and interact with somebody who has had some kind of abuse or trauma or sexual violence or something happen to them?
In interacting with the victim of
Yes,
the yeah.
yes.
um,
Who might be very reticent to say anything about it.
yeah, I think in the initial moments afterwards, so shortly afterwards,
Hmm.
you need to first, check for physical harm. Do they need
Hmm.
medical attention? Is the
Right.
first and foremost. Um, and then after that, ensure that there's not going to be a repeat. So is the person around the corner, waiting
Mm.
for another opportunity? Immediate safety after that.
Yeah, you want
And
to,
the other,
they call the first responders calling that is the scene safe before
yeah,
they enter. They have to make sure a scene is safe so that they don't become a victim or make sure there's not a threat. So
yeah,
secure the area. Yeah.
yeah. The other thing is that it's to call the police
Hmm.
or other emergency services. If there's medical requirement first and
Hmm.
foremost, because you've got wait time there. And
Right.
then after that, just engage in whatever reassurance that person needs. Sometimes and again, we were talking about fight or flight response earlier.
Hmm.
Some people might react to be very angry and might want
Hmm.
to then subsequently, lash out or get agitated. Some people are very upset and scared, which is more the flight response. So it's
Hmm.
about reassuring that person in the moment
And some
for
people
that.
might go into freeze mode where they are in shock and they're just not saying anything, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is that you want to make sure that the environment in which you are dealing with them is not going to be subsequently scary for them. So
Right.
you need to make sure that your body language is calm, talk at a calm tone of voice, like I'm, that don't, because it's very easy for the responding person to get caught up in the in that flight response as well. So you need to
Mhm.
bring your response down to be calm,
Kind of like what they
reassuring
tell
to
you
that
on the
person.
airlines, put your own oxygen mask on before you put on the one on the person
Yeah,
next to you, right? So take care of yourself, um,
yeah,
so that
yeah.
you can be helpful. Hmm.
Because again, if it is in a dynamic situation where there has been something like that, again, that situation could change. That if there's been, say, they got
Right.
into a physical altercation, that person might have gone away and then turned around, come back and go, no, I'm gonna have another go at that person, and
Right.
come back around.
Right.
Um,
Well, and the
and
reason
be
I bring
reassured.
this, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, the reason I bring
And
this up is because so much physical um, abuse and attacks and things that are happening now. So a majority of them now have this element of online safety about them, of people, connecting with someone through a social media account and pretending they're somebody else, or even using their own face and everything, but painting a better picture of themselves and then finding out that they're violent or they have a psychiatric disorder or somehow unsafe and unhinged. And I unfortunately speak to too many people who have gone through that, who are now trying to figure out how to protect themselves because there's somebody out there, even people, even if they're able to get a restraining order, that person knows where, their favorite coffee spot to grab coffee in the morning. They know where they work, they know where they live, they know where they work out. And then they're living this life feeling unsafe 24/7. And the best thing is to not get yourself in a situation like that. But it is not to blame the victim at all. It is about the correlation between online safety and physical safety that we are living in today. And so I'd love you to speak to that.
yeah, it's really really tricky, and I think that there is a I think there's several things people can do for that if they are going to meet someone who they haven't met in person before, that they've met online. Public places, allowing other people to know where you're going to be,
Hmm.
um, and do all the things that you would usually have, so people would know. Say you were going. I mean, this in your professional life, your colleague might know where you're going for a business meeting. So if you're
Hmm.
going to meet someone in person, your personal life, make sure someone else is knowing where you're meeting. Um,
Right.
Public areas, there is a a danger that you can do that. So you have to be cautious about time, location, and the other thing is trust your instincts. People's gut reaction sometimes can be quite surprisingly good, and if you
Yeah.
talk to some people, they say, I knew there was
Right.
something wrong. I knew there was something wrong.
Something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to make a scene, or I didn't want to
Yeah,
be rude, or I didn't want to do something. This is great advice for people everywhere, but also, if for parents or adults who have younger adults and teenagers in their life, this is really great advice to be sitting down and having a conversation about this with them because, and I remember when I was a teenager, you think nothing will happen to you and you feel somewhat invincible. And, you'd be a little more cautious if you felt there were, if you knew there were, criminals driving around the neighborhood, you'd be a little more alert. And you probably wouldn't park 8 blocks away from the party and walk in high heels, to it. You'd figure out some way or have somebody walk with you. Or that's the other thing. Just, I remember asking people to walk me to my car so I could be safe. I remember how scary it was to ask for that. Like, like, oh, it's such a big deal. And people love helping you do things like that. And they love helping you feel safe. And so to get over the inhibition of asking for for any kind of assistance with your safety, I think is a very empowering step for everybody. And I hope everyone listening will do that themselves, but also have that conversation with anyone in their life that needs to have that conversation.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple of really good points you've made there. And the first is that no is a whole sentence.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
don't if you feel uncomfortable with someone, you don't owe them any explanation. You don't owe them any politeness because they've
That's
already crossed that. There's if you're not comfortable with the situation, just get up and go. Say goodbye. Goodbye is a whole sentence too. No and goodbye are whole sentences. You
right.
don't owe any level of politeness to anyone who's made you feel scared and uncomfortable.
I love that
Um,
because a lot of times people are doing that because that person might have they've given some kind of authority to them or they recognize them, but that person's authority gets revoked the moment that they abuse their own authority.
yeah,
You are allowed to revoke their authority from them if they are using it to harm you in some way, harm you or somebody else. And so I wish I had known that when I was younger. I learned it later, and I hope everybody learns it so that they feel empowered to do that.
yeah. And the other thing you said about asking people to help with safety,
Hmm.
one of the fastest ways to form a stronger relationship with someone is
Hmm.
to ask them for a favor
Hmm.
because everyone feels good when they do a favor for someone because
Right.
it gives them a sense of um, it boosts their sense of self-esteem because oh someone asked me to do something for them they feel
Right.
good anytime don't feel awkward because all you're doing by asking someone to help you with your safety is
Mm.
making them feel good and you
Yeah.
shouldn't feel reticent about making someone else feel good
Yeah.
um, and people jump at the chance and the other thing is that it's not just making them feel good in that moment they will feel good they will feel I would be shocked to learn that if anyone asked someone else to help them walk to the car, say you walked up to someone and said, "Can you just walk me to my car? I'm just feeling uncomfortable," and they walked,
Hmm.
like you said, a couple of blocks with them. They
Hmm.
would tell that story later. They said, "I was out last night, and someone came up to me and said, 'Can I walk to the car?' And I said, 'Yeah, absolutely.'" And they would tell that story several times to other people because they
Right.
felt so good about the good deed, and that
And
then means that
they're important. It meant they were important in that moment and needed, and we all want to feel that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they would, but that goodwill would spread because the people they told that story to would think that's a good thing to do. And then they would look to do good things because someone else has done a good thing. And then the ripple
Right.
effect is bigger than you would think.
That is so true. I love that. What other advice do you have connecting physical safety and online safety for university students and young adults and people in general?
Yeah, there is a an aspect there that links to online safety about your sharing too many details about yourself online can be an issue.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you you know, it sounds obvious, but you can water this down. Don't take a photo of your post with your address on it, but then people have your address. You know,
Right.
and most people wouldn't do that, but there are other things you can do there.
Right. Or if you're working out at your gym and you're proud of something, just don't make it obvious the physical location of where you are. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there's a line to walk, isn't there? Because you don't want people to become too paranoid. You know,
Right.
they still need to be able to enjoy and share things about themselves
Hmm.
online. But I think just a sensible level of thinking
So what
about that.
advice do you have for college students or young adults or anybody, but particularly that population who they're going to a concert with friends and they want to check in, when they get there and be showing everybody where they are. Um, you know, Under what conditions do you think that's fine, and under what conditions do you think it might be better to check in as they're leaving or post when they're leaving or when they get home or something? What advice do you have there? Because there is this spectrum. And in cybersecurity and safety, we're like, don't post your vacation pictures when you're on your vacation, post them when you get home, say we just had the most wonderful vacation. It's very hard, for folks who are going to go see, I don't know, Ed Sheeran or Billie Eilish or whoever to not say, I'm going to the show. And I understand that. But at least making sure what safety precautions, would you, if you had a member of your family who was 18 and off at college for the first time and going to one of these concerts, what would you advise them to do if they are going to post live, or what should they be doing to make sure, like maybe not walk home alone or something? What is your advice for how to stay safe physically with what they're doing online?
Yeah, I think there is that. I think there is an element of making sure that there's two things to consider. There's their personal bodily safety and the
Hmm.
safety of their assets and objects. So if you're, like you said, if you're away on holiday and you post I'm on holiday, people know that your house is empty.
Right,
And so
right.
and so
That
that
even happened to Brad Pitt famously. He got, when he was, and of course he can't not post where he is, and he has security. But for the rest of us, if it can happen to him, it can certainly happen to us when we don't have the kind of security teams looking after our homes and our assets.
yeah, I think there is that. I think there's also a level of curating the people who follow you, where your content is being posted,
Hmm. Hmm.
the exposure that it has. So I think it's a case by case basis. But I think good advice would be to post after the event,
Hmm.
um, for that. And I know there's some social media apps that allow you to post your live location, which
Right.
helpful sometimes because that means people know where you are.
Hmm.
Not helpful sometimes because people know where you
Know
are,
where you
and
are.
so
Yeah. Well,
and
and
so
it's that which people know where you are is what it actually comes down to, correct? So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
predicting that.
Um, but
Well,
don't
this
be
is
afraid. Don't be afraid of blocking. Don't be afraid of reporting people
mhm,
online.
unfriending,
That's yeah,
disconnecting.
yeah.
What about how do you feel about like you might say, okay, I'm just going to share with friends versus share publicly. Okay. But then also, you know, friends are taking selfies and posting and tagging you and things like that. Again, not to be rude to a friend, but is there anything that you would tell people they could choose to do? Not that they should do even necessarily, but if you're thinking about if you really want to be the ultimate safety, here's what you would do. What advice would you have?
Yeah, I mean, if people are that concerned that they're worried
Hmm.
about being a selfie with their friend and they're posting the location,
Hmm.
a, I think a good friend would listen to you
Right,
if you're that concerned.
right,
It costs them nothing to post it a few hours later, and I think it's a case by case basis.
right.
There's a huge variance here,
Well, and I'm bringing
and
this up because I'm seeing more and more instances of, and hearing them, and also talking to some people as well, where a date gone wrong turns into a potential stalker situation. For men and women. And any so any gender, with any gender stalking, and so you just have to, if you are concerned for a time, it might be advisable to not, post things like that. So you don't have to make it a permanent condition, but you could play it safe, as we used to say.
yeah, and the other thing is create a new account.
Mm-hmm. That's a great
You know,
idea.
just
Hmm.
just if you've got a few hundred, you've got a few hundred followers,
Hmm.
on a social media platform, which is high. Human societies are not built around the idea that you can. I think it's something like 250 people you can know half well, or something like that. There are
I've heard that
anthropological studies in
number.
this.
Yes.
It's something around there, isn't it?
Hmm.
So anyone who you would actually be fussed about, I mean, anyone that you actually really deep down in your heart of hearts care about following you will move when you change accounts. If you message them and say, I'm changing accounts to this, follow me on there.
That makes sense.
Um,
And then you can just connect and have a smaller account with just close friends that you
yeah,
share more details with, and almost treat the other like you're a celebrity and have a public persona. And
yeah,
you don't want the paparazzi and criminals and anybody else knowing where you are. I love that idea. That's really good advice. And that's great advice for all of us. And it's certainly great advice for our young people who are going off to university. So, well, that is really, really helpful advice. And Ross, I can't wait for our part B episode, where we're going to get into talking about Ruverse and online community that bans AI content. So we'll have everybody tune in next for that. So, and this has been really great talking with you. And where can people follow you and what you're doing with universities and protecting young people?
Yeah, so injustsecurity.co.uk is our security provision. Yeah, the people we put out on the university accommodation. So just
Perfect.
head to that website for that.
And get resources there. That's awesome. Well, everyone, this was our special edition for our young people who are going off to college or leaving home, and for all of us to think about the connection between our online safety and our physical safety. So until next time, share this with somebody who needs it and stay safe out there.